Welcome to the ReGen Brands podcast. This is a place for consumers, operators, and investors to learn about the consumer brands supporting regenerative agriculture and how they're changing the world. This is your host, Kyle, joined with my co-host, Dave C. Let's dive in.
On this episode, we have Alec Jaffe, who is the founder and CEO of Alec's Ice Cream. Alec's is supporting regenerative agriculture through their ice cream products that are made with regenerative and easily digestible A2 dairy. In this episode, we learn more about how Alec turned his love affair with ice cream into a business, how Alec's created the first certified regenerative lineup of ice cream products in the world, and how they plan to scale the brand into new flavors, products, and retail channels. Man, I kind of want some ice cream right now. Let's dive in.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of ReGen Brands. We are fired up today to have Alec from Alec's Ice Cream with us today, the first regenerative ice cream in the world. So welcome, Alec. Pumped to have you with us, man.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
I recently was lucky enough to try Alec's for the first time, and my God, was it good. And it also felt just so good knowing that what I was doing, was good for the planet while eating something so indulgent. So that was a rare treat. Literally.
Yeah, exactly. We like to have our ice cream, you feel good about it. It makes you feel good, with the A2 dairy as well. All about it. It's just good all around.
That's right.
Alec, what's your favorite flavor?
Oh, my favorite flavor, I think, since childhood is mint chocolate chip. That's just been always my favorite. And I know that can be kind of polarizing sometimes in the ice cream world. So
we're getting controversial early,
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
it.
That's like asking him what's his favorite child, That's
Exactly.
tough. That's tough for him to answer.
Yeah. Don't tell the other ones I said that.
Cool. Right on. Well, that segues nicely into, tell us a little bit about your company. Where can we find Alec's today? What kind of products do you carry and things like that? Just kind of give us a high level overview for those who are not familiar with the brand.
Yeah, totally. So we are the world's first certified regenerative organic ice cream, also made with 100% gut-friendly A2 dairy. And we combine all of that into a super premium indulgent ice cream. I like to say if you're going to have ice cream, it better taste good. Otherwise, kind of what's the point? So we like to make a better for you ice cream that actually tastes better too. You can find us in retailers across the country. We're constantly adding more stores. We're in over 500 stores at the moment in some awesome retailers like Erewhon, Fresh Market, Mom's Organic Market, New Seasons, Rayleigh's, and we'll be adding to that list constantly throughout, hopefully, the future. So, yeah. And you can also find us on our website. We also ship nationwide direct to consumer. So if you go to our website, alexicecream.com, you can place an order to ship directly to your door, or if you want to send an awesome gift, you can do that as well.
And for those listening, this is Alex, ALEC''S, not ALEX.
Correct. Yes.
Just want to make that distinction.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned better for you. What I love about Alex, and I'm a huge ice cream fan. Like as a kid, our family would go to Baskin Robbins. I was like, every night after dinner, like, hey, can you go to Baskin Robbins? So big ice cream fan. And I've been trying to find, as somebody who watches my macros and is really conscious about what I put into my body, I've tried a lot of those alternatives that you're talking about, like Night Food, Halo Top, and things like that. And you mentioned you want ice cream to still taste good. And what I found when I tried Alec's was, number one, I wasn't really too concerned about the macros. I just wanted to try it without worrying about it. But when I looked at the total calories and sugars for the pint compared to some of the other alternatives, I was pleasantly surprised by the nutritional content. And it wasn't 100 grams plus of sugar for the entire thing. I think it was 45, which, is still high. It's still a treat. But, for me, it didn't feel like a sacrifice in flavor. Was a fantastic ad, that it wasn't too, I don't want to use the term bad for you, but it was a good alternative for ice cream.
Yeah, totally. Look, at the end of the day, it's ice cream. I'm never going to come out and say this is the health food. This is the most important thing to add to your diet if you're trying to, watch your macros and things like that. But also I think it's good to have those treats and indulgences in our daily routine and in our life. For us, it was all about okay, how can we make something that tastes great, but also is good for you in a sense of like, we're not overloading it with sugar. We're using regenerative organic cane sugar, and trying to make something that, it has that sort of like subtle sweetness where it is actually a little lower on the sugar content than a typical really indulgent ice cream. It's definitely not a low sugar ice cream. But yeah, it has that where it's like, okay, this is, it's ice cream, but it's also not like, oh my God, this is a horrible, like a treat. Like I can never do this again. So, we like to make it as clean as possible.
Yeah, it's kind of like you found the white space between like the hardcore healthy ice cream where you're really sacrificing on flavor and the way too indulgent, like I can do this maybe once a month tops.
Exactly.
Which is
ice
really
cream
nice.
hangover after eating it.
You feel bad about yourself for a week after the fact. Yeah, Alex kind of walks that line really, really well.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, you guys have a really cool origin story. You yourself have a really cool story. So just take the audience through kind of your personal story and how Alex came to be.
Sure. So this really came to be through kind of a convergence of a few different life experiences that I've had. So I've always loved ice cream, so much so that I actually taught myself how to make ice cream in elementary school for a class project. We had a project where we had to make something at home and bring it into class to present. And so I chose how to make ice cream. And so I bought a little Cuisinart ice cream maker recipe book, taught myself how to make a custard style base, and did the whole thing. And just did it as a side hobby growing up.
You just absolutely destroyed. I said I grew up loving ice cream, and you just took that to like the nth degree. So
yeah,
kudos to you.
That was so much cooler than any science project I did in elementary school.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And so did that, and then also grew up around family members who were very involved in the sustainable agriculture movement. An uncle who's a professor of agroecology, and so I'm learning about like topsoil and soil health and rainwater runoff and all these things like at a time when no one was really talking about this. And so that was a really just impactful part of my life where I was just surrounded by sustainable agriculture. And as I got older, looking in the grocery store, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of like these better for you ice creams that don't taste really that great. And I want an ice cream that tastes amazing, and then at the same time, all these ice creams that taste amazing, I feel pretty horrible after I eat them. And also I don't really feel great about the impact that they're making on the environment and how they're being made. And you look at every other category in the grocery store, it seems like there's some sort of better for you, more sustainable option that is delivering a nearly as good taste component too. And in ice cream, that wasn't really the case, at least according to what I found. And so I started making ice cream at home for friends and family, just like really going all in on developing a recipe. Found something that people really loved. And
flavors? What were the first flavors?
Ooh, so the first flavor was, of course, mint chip. And then we actually had a cookies and cream that we haven't done for a variety of reasons.
I need that. I need the cookies and cream.
Yeah. And then, the classics, vanilla, chocolate, maybe some other creations that I have up my sleeve that, maybe we'll see come to market in a little bit. And just selling it around to neighbors in the community, giving it to friends. People really loved it. And so that started a long path of like, okay, this is kind of cool. How could I potentially turn this into a business?
Give us a time frame. Like what year is this taking place?
So this was taking place around like 2018, I would say, is when I'm like in the kitchen at home, just experimenting. And then
how much ice cream are you eating at this time frame in your life?
Oh my God, so much, a lot, to the point where I basically have to be like so intense with my diet in every other aspect so that I don't gain just a ridiculous amount of weight. And also, like, I'm just kind of obsessive like this. So I'll be, in bed, it's like 11:30 at night and I'm like trying to go to sleep. And then all of a sudden I have some like oh my God, like, is this flavor okay? Or like, is this part of it okay? And so then all of a sudden I'm in the kitchen and I'm just like eating ice cream nonstop at like 11:30 at night, just like analyzing every bite. So that's probably not the healthiest habit to have. But yeah,
We appreciate
eating
your
a lot of ice cream.
sacrifice. Those of us who
Yeah,
get it, when we choose, we really appreciate that.
yeah, no problem. Yeah, that was like around 2018, and then that goes through 2019. Trying to figure out in 2019, like, okay, how do I turn this into an actual business? Looking at a variety of different pathways, whether that be co-packing the product, maybe opening up an ice cream shop, and then neither one really worked. The ice cream shop didn't really work, mainly because I was more interested, honestly, in creating a product for retail and selling into a grocery store. I just felt like more excited about that.
Is that because of the scale or the fact that it can be in many places at once? Like, what was the driver for that kind of leaning
Yeah,
towards retail?
yeah, I think it was the scale, and just it was more exciting and interesting to me as a business opportunity where you're creating this product and then you see it on shelves all across the country, ideally. And that was much more exciting to me than essentially creating a restaurant with the ice cream shop. And I just foresaw, I mean, having an ice cream shop, it's really challenging business because you're just reliant on so much foot traffic. So you need to be in a high rent area, but then you're selling something that's like $5 max per customer. So you just need all those people. And when I just looked at the two, like, okay, how do I want to be doing that? Whatever path I go down, it's going to be really hard and really challenging. So I better be really excited about whatever I'm doing. And I just was more excited about the retail side.
And COVID would have came along and probably steered you that way anyway,
Yeah.
and been a tough challenge. So it's probably a blessing in disguise for sure.
Exactly. So then we were really looking at the co-packing side and ran into a lot of issues there, mainly around dairy sourcing and, wanting to be as sustainable as possible. It was really tough at our volumes as this tiny brand with no customers. We're just starting out, and like, hey, we want you to actually source this dairy from this farm and like clear out your milk silos, and like this is who we're going to be using, and also we're going to be doing like 1,000-gallon run, and that's it. And they're like, that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So let's dive into that a little bit for the consumers
Yeah.
who aren't as aware of like the manufacturing space. So basically, you're working with these large co-manufacturers. You don't own your own facility, so you're looking for a partner who's willing to source a higher quality product than they're used to carrying. And because you care about the integrity of your ingredient claims, they have to go through the extra process of essentially cleaning out their manufacturing line so that you're not tainting your quality product, right? And the additional point of you've also been like next to nothing compared to their regular customers. Like, why would they do that? Is
Right.
essentially what's going on here, right?
Exactly. So that was the path that we were looking at. That's not what we're currently doing, but that was the path that we were looking at. Is like, okay, like we are really specific about our sourcing and who we're getting our ingredients from. But at the same time, we're a tiny brand, and so that's kind of the challenge that we ran into is these larger factories. And I totally get why they wouldn't want to do it. It's like, why change up your whole operation, like change up your sourcing, all these different things for this tiny customer that, like, who knows if they're going to be successful or not. So we ran into a lot of roadblocks there, and the co-manufacturing path is the path that I don't want to know an exact percentage, but I would say probably 90% of the products that you buy, especially from like new emerging brands, probably even more than 90% are coming from these co-manufacturers because it's so expensive to invest in your own manufacturing.
Right.
And challenging too. But we decided to
But
we decided to invest in that manufacturing because it allowed us to do the things that we wanted to do and be really specific with our dairy sourcing. And I think dairy might have its own set of unique challenges that make co-packing challenging with sourcing. with unique sourcing. But we got really lucky, found this shut down ice cream factory in Sonoma County, California, that was at the perfect size where it's large enough to scale into a national brand size, but also small enough to where a startup can move in there and not feel like, why are we in this 50,000 square? Like it's not this massive factory. It's very small.
Awesome.
Like when people in the industry come in, they're like, oh, this is a really small factory. But when you're walking in and you've never worked in a factory before, you're like, this is a massive factory.
There's so many like good ReGen threads to pull on here. All right, the facility doing something different rather than going the co-man route, producing in-house. Like we have to do things differently in this space to create the kind of traction and the kind of success we want. That's one. Two, this old like abandoned factory, we have to restore a resource that was kind of previously unused or degraded, right? And we have to be lean and do less with more, use less input. So there's all these beautiful kind of thematics about ReGen that I think have been encapsulated in the brand and the production. So that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it really allows us to, we're growing this facility, we're repairing it. There's a lot of work that's gone into getting it back up and running, and a lot of repairs that we're still doing. And it allows us to just be really connected to ReGen and to our suppliers and who we're working with. And now, there are some days when I definitely wish we weren't manufacturing, and machine breaks down, like, God, another repair. But like zooming out, I am so happy that we've gone down this route. It gives us so much more control over what we're doing, and allows us to really go all in on this regenerative mission.
And have you guys been sourcing your dairy from the same partner throughout, since the inception of the brand, or is that a recent development?
It's a recent development. So we're currently working with Alexander Family Farms, which is an amazing company. I'm sure people in the regenerative space are well aware of them. And we found out about them really some way in like spring, early summer of last year. And as soon as we found out about them, it was just kind of like, we have to work with them. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Well, there's also that proximity thing. You're in Sonoma, they're in Crescent City, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, so super close.
Yeah. So, and that's the other thing. Like, I look at how lucky we've been in with all these different things that have happened. Just having a farm like Alexander Farms so local to us that we can source from them. It really allows us to do things that not a lot of other companies could do. And so, yeah, we started sourcing. We started talking with them last year, and then made the full transition over to sourcing our dairy exclusively from them last fall, and then in this past April launched the kind of rebrand of our product that has the regenerative and A2 benefits and new packaging and all that fun stuff.
Will you explain that to the audience, both the ReGen side and how ReGen Dairy is different, and both the A2 side and how that's different? And for audience, Alexander Family Farms is the first and, according to my knowledge, still the only regenerative dairy in the world. So they're certified by RLC and also Land and Market. So, just incredible company doing incredible work. But take the audience through kind of why regenerative dairy is so important, and then why A2 is so important, and what that means for the end consumer eating the ice cream.
Yeah, so regenerative dairy is really important for a variety of reasons. One, I guess the impact for you as the consumer and consuming that product, consuming that dairy, it's going to be higher in nutrients like omega-3s and CLAs. Also, with everything in ReGen, the environmental impact is going to be really significant. It's so funny and I guess more interesting when I'm talking to people and saying, yeah, we're better for the environment. We're a dairy product. And people having to talk through with people about like how cows and grazing animals are such an important part of this regenerative system. And you really need them to have a really effective regenerative system. And so the way regenerative dairy is different is you're looking at how the cows are out on pasture, consuming pretty much only grass, or like having that as the significant majority of their diet just being grass. and then how they're managed on pasture, where they're actually being managed in sort of a rotational grazing pattern where they're only on certain parts of the pasture, which creates a much healthier pasture, which then allows that grass on that pasture to pull carbon out of the air, store it in the ground, to the point where, we're seeing these regenerative cattle operations end up being carbon negative, because that soil is that healthy soil, which you need the cows adding their compost and, trampling it into the ground and eating dying grass and, keeping that grass really healthy, to just store so much carbon into the soil. It's really, really cool and really powerful when you are just there. And so I visited their farm at the end of August last year.
That was your first
in California,
visit there?
first
Okay.
visit. And in California in August, pretty much everything is just brown and kind of dying. And it's because it's so dry. And their farm is still perfectly green, and they're watering their fields way less than their neighbors. And I'm like, I have this picture that I show where it's their farm and then a neighboring farm, and their farm is perfectly green and their neighboring farm is like brown and not so pretty. And it's just like so amazing to see that
Well, not
impact.
only that,
So
but I got to
that was
expand on this
really
right now
cool.
because today is July 20th. We're in the middle of like a global heat wave, right? There's record temperatures across the world right now. And I was just watching a video Kiss the Ground put on earlier this morning. They did this really super simple experiment where they took a temperature gun and they shot it at a plant, then they shot it at a green piece of paper, and then they shot it on bare exposed earth. Just to compare the temperatures on the same day and the same amount of sun. The plant temperature was like 60 degrees. The green piece of paper, which is also off the ground and same color, was 89 degrees, so 30-degree difference. And then the bare soil was 138 degrees. But for those of us who cook meat, I mean, that's a well done steak, and that's like the ground temp. So to your point, like these regenerative
Yeah.
pastures are not just sequestering carbon, but they're also holding water and helping to keep the earth cool. And if we can get more adoption of these regenerative dairies and or crops, grains, whatever, that's keeping the earth cooler in general. So it's just really important to touch on that right now because it's a really huge contemporary issue. And this to me is like, if you can eat killer ice cream and support like cooling the planet at the same time, why wouldn't you choose to do that?
Pretty good. Yeah, I mean the retention piece with healthy soil is something that we talk a lot about carbon, but the water retention piece is something that I think doesn't get talked about enough. With how, I mean, I see it with farms around Sonoma County where like we don't get a ton of rain in the spring and summer. We get a decently rainy winter, but and so it's really beautiful and green in the winter and spring, but then you just see it slowly turn to brown. And if we can store more of that rainwater in the soil, just keep healthier grasses, I think that's really powerful. So that's the regenerative piece. And then the A2 side of things, I think, is really awesome as well. So A2 dairy is basically dairy that's easy to digest. A2 is a milk protein that's found in all mammals' milk. So human milk, cow milk, goat milk, sheep milk have this A2 protein. A long time ago, certain cows started producing an A1 protein instead of this A2 protein. And this A1 protein is what causes a lot of digestive issues for humans when they're consuming cow's milk. So Alexander Farms, they make sure that their dairy is 100% A2, so it's easily digestible. And a lot of people who are sort of that self-diagnosed lactose intolerant person actually are able to digest this A2 dairy totally fine. So there is still lactose in it. That's a question that I get often, like, oh, so does your dairy not have lactose? No, it has lactose. It just has 100% of this A2 protein. And it's been pretty incredible seeing how many people who typically struggle with dairy, and especially like we were talking about earlier, when you have that bowl of ice cream that's really indulgent, then you sort of are in a food coma for a few hours.
That blow.
And you just don't exactly. You just don't have that experience at all with our product. So like we like to say, our ice cream leaves you glowing,
Nice.
not bloating.
Love that.
And it's really true. It's pretty
So
cool to see.
just out of curiosity, sorry, Anthony, we always do this where we try to chime in at the exact same time. From a percentage basis, you might have the exact figures, but what percentage of U.S. dairy is A1/A2 versus A2/A2?
I don't have, unless the product specifically calls out that it is 100% A2 dairy or that it's A2 dairy, you're going to be consuming A1 dairy. It's so prevalent. And also because a lot of the dairy products that you're consuming are coming from a dairy source that's like a called a pool of dairy. So you're pooling together all these different farms in a region. They all get sent over to a local creamery. They get processed into whole milk, skim milk, 2% cream, whatever components you need. So you don't know, okay, this farm it may be 100% A2, but if it's getting pooled into with 5 other farms, then they're not testing and not trying to have that percentage. They're definitely producing likely mostly A1 milk. And so, if you're consuming dairy and it doesn't call out A2, you're most deaf. I can't. You're likely consuming A1.
It's a very small percentage. I bet Stephanie and Blake Alexander could give us the exact stats because they're all over it. Hilarious story. So I have an autoimmune disease and I gave up dairy for the longest time. And last year we had a bunch of Alexander products at the RFSI forum, and they had these 12-ounce like individual chocolate milks, a turmeric milk. Like there's like 3 or 4 flavors. I must have had 6 of them in 3 hours, and I was just completely fine. Like just smashing these chocolate milks that were incredible, but also like zero issues consuming the dairy, which has not been the case for me historically. And then them on the ReGen side, we have these awesome ReGen pioneers that are kind of nailing 1 or 2 commodities. Like the Alexanders are in a different they're in a different stratosphere. Like they got eggs, they got chickens, they're doing the dairy thing. Like if you listen to podcasts or you visit their website, they're doing awesome tree plantings around their water sources in these riparian areas, and they're integrating like even the native ruminant like elk and the species that are native to that geography. So they're just pioneering folks that we can't give them enough kudos for everything that they're doing.
Yeah, it's really exciting being able to work with them and just exactly like you said, just how they've helped pioneer the space is really inspiring.
I'm also an everyday consumer of Alexander Farms dairy, literally every single day. And I actually recently went to the store and they were out of stock, which is both great and horrible to see. Like, hey, people are buying the product, awesome, but I don't get to buy it, so I had to buy a different grass-fed non-regenerative milk. And I felt guilty every single day I was consuming it. And now I'm going to end up feeling the same way with ice cream. Like if I'm not consuming this regenerative ice cream, like I'm making a mistake for myself, for the planet, for everybody, right? It's cool that I feel like brands like Alexander Farms or Alex Ice Cream can develop this kind of hardcore following of people who really want to put the best nutrition sources in their body, or just the best sourced ingredients, and are really looking to do something positive for the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
Alec, what has been the arc? So we want to talk a little fundraising history and kind of commercial track record, right? So like, what has been the arc? You started making the ice cream in 2018. How have you funded the growth, and how has kind of the sales trajectory been since 2018? Take us through that.
So we funded the growth mainly through angel investors, some people involved in the space, and the sales trajectory. It's been really interesting. We started off just in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, selling to local independent retailers, and then this past April, I guess, is when we really started branching out, and it's been pretty rapid, and pretty kind of crazy. The growth that we've seen, especially since bringing on these ReGen and A2 I guess, attributes and components. And so we've sort of just taken off, and we've gone from, I think last year we were in probably 150 stores. Now we're in over 500.
Let's go.
And yeah, and we should be in well over 1,000 next year. Talking with some really exciting retailers for some wider launches next year, and yeah, it's very exciting. The thing that has been so interesting for me being new into the whole grocery space is that grocery moves slowly. And
Calendars
these larger
too. It's like
people
we only take brands
yes,
in X. We do the ice cream
exactly,
in August.
and so
wait till then.
Yeah, that was a big learning experience for me. Just every other industry that you want to grow, okay, go out to your customers, go pitch them your product, explain why it's going to help them, and try and sell it. With grocery, it's like, yeah, talk to us in September, and we'll look at it once, and then if we do like it, great, we'll put you on the shelf in March. So that growth process, it's very slow and comes in large chunks, and that has definitely been a learning experience. But yeah, we're excited for that next large chunk growth to come.
Nice. And,
next year.
I assume, I'm curious, when you pitch these products to the retailers, you've got a premium price point, you've got a verification and a certification that are not super widely recognized at this stage of the game. How is your product typically received from the buyers and the decision makers you're working with at retail?
They've all been really excited about it. On the buyer side, and I guess the industry side, there is a good amount of awareness on ReGen and A2. And so they're really excited about those components. And then they try the product and like, wow, this tastes great too. And so then then they get really excited about it.
Got to be easy when you're pitching ice cream instead of
the
tofu,
challenge,
right?
Exactly. Like the nice thing about what we're doing is no one turns down free samples. We can, from any like influencers to retail buyers, like, hey, we want to send you some free ice cream. Very rarely do we get like, no, I don't want the free ice cream. So I would say retailers are really excited about both of these things that are coming out and that are still very new. I think the real challenge is on the consumer side, where that excitement and I guess really awareness. It's not excitement, because as soon as you tell someone about it, they get really excited about it. They're really interested. Like, wow, we can help repair the planet, start contributing to like a really critical part of the climate crisis, can have better quality food. The challenge is most consumers just don't know about this. And so I think if a retailer does have a concern, they're like, well, are people going to know about regenerative? And that's what I see as the biggest challenge with regenerative. I
really appreciate you surfacing that thought, and it's something that Anthony and I have thought about a lot, is de-villainizing animal-based products as bad for the planet. And I myself am just as guilty as anybody. Like, I didn't eat beef for 3 years because I thought, I don't want to contribute to CAFOs and destroying the planet. And then when I learned about regenerative, that it's not like a do no harm by avoiding a particular segment of food, you can actually support good by contributing to a company like Alexander Farms or Alex Ice Cream that's doing it right. To me, that's just a really powerful like paradigm shift. And you're spot on. Like, if we can get consumers to make that same shift, then I think there's the upside to regenerative is just like limitless.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hard thing is there's so much narrative around animal-based products, particularly, and their impact on the environment. And totally fair. Like, industrial beef and dairy is when they're in feedlots and all that, really potentially damaging for the environment. There's lots of issues with. Across the board, you look at it, industrialized agriculture. There's a lot of issues you can point to on both the animal and the plant side, and so it is really interesting when I have these conversations with people. I really have to walk them through why, as an animal cow-based product, we are actually better for the environment. But even just the awareness of the term regenerative agriculture, a lot of people haven't even heard about it yet. And so it is still so early. Like when we're in it, when you're in it, you're like, this is such a no-brainer thing to get behind, and so exciting and so powerful, and so much opportunity to make real positive change that it feels like everyone should know about this. But then when you go out into the market and we're doing demos or events and sampling, and a lot of people are like, explain regenerative agriculture to me. And the cool thing is a lot of people are very open and receptive to it, but that awareness I see is like one of our big things that we're working on, just getting people to know about it more.
It's a challenge for somebody like myself that even works in the space every day. Like, be at a party and someone's like, what do you do? And it's like, well, do you have 5 minutes? Like, can I do, not exactly. Like a Jehovah's Witness, can I talk to you about soil health today? Can I talk to you about soil health today? But it's super important. And, you know, tactically, you mentioned sampling events. Like, what have you guys done that's been successful to support launches in retail? And what do you plan to do to support, you know, the massive kind of doors you're going to add here in the next year?
So it's been a real challenge with COVID, because as a new brand and food product, the best way for me to sell my product to you is to give you a free sample, and then you try, especially a product like ice cream. And if you have a product like ours that we really believe in the taste, quality, and that it's just a really delicious product. The best, most effective way that I can sell it is, here's a free taste. Do you like it? Awesome. It's literally right around the corner. You can go get it. We're in the store. Like, you just have to go to the shelf, pick it up, and you can buy it at the cash register. But a lot of retailers just during the pandemic, we haven't been able to do in-store sampling, and it's still been slowed for that component to come back. So when we can, we definitely do sampling, and it's been so amazing. Just hearing the feedback from demo teams and everything, like, people are loving this product. And we had one like demo report come back, and they said that one person tried the ice cream at the booth, they had another brand's ice cream in their shopping cart, put the other ice cream back, and replaced it with ours.
Incredible.
After trying. So, like, you know, it's such like, it's so awesome, like, hearing that kind of feedback. So we're definitely leaning into demos heavily when available. And if not, you know, trying different things like, you know, geo-targeted digital advertising, investing in other promotional programs in those retailers, doing discounted pricing, you know, a variety of different things.
Have y'all thought about food service at all yet, Alec?
We have a little bit, and it's something that we are looking into, and especially locally doing it. So it's something we're exploring. The challenging thing with ice cream is just, it just needs to stay frozen and stay really cold. And so it adds another layer of logistics for any kind of different initiative that we have. And so I'm very mindful about staying focused on what our core business is. And I'm very interested in food service, but sort of approaching it very cautiously.
Makes sense. So food service was a potential future, you know, opportunity, future channel. What else is in the pipeline for Alex? You mentioned you might have some flavors up your sleeves. I've got to say, as like an ice cream enthusiast, somebody who loves peanut butter, I would love to see like a collab between Alex and Quinn Snacks with their like peanut butter filled pretzels, you know, which are also ReGen. Like, to me, that's like the perfect regenerative ice cream dream, like, collaboration. So what are you thinking in terms of innovation?
Yeah. So we do have new flavors coming out. We actually have a peanut butter flavor that should be launching.
Is this breaking news? Is this breaking news on the ReGen Brands podcast?
Early next year.
Let's go.
It might be.
Now, is it just peanut butter or is it peanut butter chocolate? Like, I need specifics here. As specific as you're willing to get. I don't want to.
There is a
Oh
chocolate
God.
component to it as well. So yeah, that's all I can
Okay.
divulge at this time. Um, and really, we're looking at okay, adding different flavors, maybe some seasonal flavors. Really investing in our core product line. And then from there, do we look at getting into different formats like novelties? Novelties are really big in ice cream right now.
Explain that to the audience, Alec, what that means if
But
people aren't super CPG in the know.
yeah, so novelties are everything that isn't in a tub of ice cream. So whether you're buying like a pint or a quart, so novelties would be an ice cream sandwich or like one of those pre-packed ice cream cones, like a drumstick style ice cream, or an ice cream bar. Basically, whatever other form of ice cream you could be consuming that's not in a pint or a larger tub.
I
That's a
need an
novelty.
Alex ice cream sandwich
And so,
ASAP. Need that in the pipeline
oh my
ASAP.
God, yeah, yeah, me too. Yeah, so we're definitely looking at that down the line, but right now, really focusing on our core flavor
Awesome.
lines.
That's exciting. PB chocolate, Alex, coming your way.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Oh yeah. Yes. It's. I'm very
That's
excited about
awesome.
that one. It's
What
going to be really
what do
good.
you want this thing to look like in 10 years? What is success for you when we do this podcast for maybe the fifth or sixth time in 10 years? If Alex looks like X, you've succeeded. What is that?
I look at it from a few different lenses. I mean, there's the just pure business side, which is I want our ice cream to
Yeah.
be everywhere. Maybe not truly everywhere, but you know what I mean. I want it to be a nationally available and recognized brand, and we're super successful in sales and growing. And you can find us in wherever you shop. You can find us there. So that's one thing. Another thing I think is being looked at as one of the early
Oh
pioneers
yeah.
of the regenerative movement and a brand that really made a difference and tried to do things the right way and did things the right way and helped drive this movement. We're definitely not, there are so many amazing people involved in regenerative, and we just want to be a part of that. And I think with ice cream, we have a really unique opportunity as a product that is the category itself is just very branded. Like everyone kind of has their favorite brand that they recognize and they purchase. And there's an element of fun to ice cream that, it's that like other regenerative products maybe don't have. Like ice cream can be a lot more fun in how we market our product than like
Or bone
ground
broth, for
beef.
example.
It just or both. Like it's ice cream is just a super fun product. So how can we lean into that to help spread the message about regenerative in a way that feels different than or feels unique to ice cream? So I think those are the two things that like for us to be successful. And then I think the third thing is internally as a business, how have we created an environment for people to feel a sense of ownership, feel like they've developed their career and just really enjoyed working here. I mean, that's something that's really important to me, whether that's distributing equity awards to all of our full-time employees or offering great medical benefits as a small business. Like that's something that, maybe isn't super exciting for the end consumer, but is really exciting for me and important to me as someone who, has people are coming here and spending their lives spending their time working at this company. Like I want them to enjoy it. So if we can accomplish all three of those things, I'll be pretty
Yeah,
happy.
and I'm not shocked to hear you say that. As two fellow walk-on Division I football players, I think that team kind of mindset and that shines through the
Yep.
many conversations that we've had. And to circle back to some of the things on the animal agriculture side, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here because we've kind of talked about it here in other episodes, but like we have to attack that narrative head on. Like we need to do better in plant-based ag as well in terms of regenerative adoption and all the things, but there is such this narrative out there that we have to have pioneering brands that are animal-based products that really tell that story and shift that narrative, or we're just going to lose out to the kind of, in my opinion, the mass marketing machine that's kind of funneling some of the false solutions, in my opinion, on the plant-based side.
Totally. Well, and I think we need to shift the argument because it's
Yeah,
it's
totally.
not animals versus plants. It's regenerative versus conventional industrial agriculture. So it's like you're forced in today's world, it feels like you're forced to choose between animal and plant, and you can't like walk the line. But it should be that like plant-based regenerative ag should be partnering with animal-based regenerative ag, and that should be like that's the front we need to like bridge the gap on, because that's
Yeah.
really where I think you're going to get the people that convert from like I'm not going to avoid all animal products no matter what, to start to reconsider like, oh, why is this regen plant company that I really like love to purchase and support, why are they partnering with this animal company? And then that can open the door to that further education.
Yeah, that's a great way to frame it, honestly, is just, do you either want to be supporting a more industrialized system, or do you want to be supporting a holistic regenerative system? And which way do you want to go? And I think framing it like that is very helpful for people who are like, it's just it's a total, you're totally flipping what you've thought of like how to be sustainable as a consumer. And so it's really important. And, as a former athlete, it's kind of a fun challenge to take that on and feel like the underdog and like, I'm gonna show you why this
That's
is
awesome.
actually better.
We're going to have this great contingent of super passionate consumers that are super well informed and follow all the ReGen accounts on Instagram, but that'll probably never be the majority. Like I just believe that. And so to me, scaling this thing is about when is ReGen going to show up at Walmart, like at scale? And like, what does that look like? And what do we have to do to get there? And so kind of a segue into the question we ask all of our guests are, how do we have 50% market share for ReGen brands by 2050? So what, in your opinion, what needs to happen for us to have 50% market share of ReGen brands by 2050?
So I think a few things need to happen for that 50% market share to take place. And I think the most important thing is really increasing general consumer awareness, where they understand why they need to be purchasing products that are contributing to this regenerative system, and how important that is. Because if there's consumer demand, then brands are going to pop up to fill that
Right.
demand, and retailers are going to find those products to sell to those interested consumers. And so I think it's just really exactly like what Anthony was saying earlier about that mass consumer who's, the bulk of the purchasing power in the country and in the world. Having them understand why this is important will be huge. And then on top of that, making it easier for starting down the supply chain, making it easier for farmers to actually transition over to regenerative,
Yeah.
and making it more affordable, whether that's through subsidies or other resources, to actually start supplying the market with regenerative ingredients. I can tell you, as a manufacturer, it's very, very hard to source regenerative verified or certified ingredients. And then more and more brands also need to start making that transition and making that investment. And there are some sacrifices as a brand that you need to make to like stand for this mission and what you believe in. Our ingredients are more expensive. We have less options of who we can source our ingredients from. But at the same time, we really believe in this, and we feel like that these sacrifices are worth doing because it's for something that we really feel is important. And the more brands you have coming out and talking about regenerative, having these conversations, telling consumers at the demo booths why regenerative is important, the more people are going to know about it. So it's sort of this kind of full circle thing where you need consumers to be aware, you need consumers to want these types of products, but you also need brands educating consumers on this, and why it's important to create that awareness, which then drives more brands popping up, which also will drive retailers wanting to have these brands in their stores. So it is really kind of this full cycle thing, but I think it really starts with
I agree, and it's funny the way you just
and
described,
education.
sort of like it's almost like a miniature regenerative ecosystem, and like what needs to happen for regenerative to scale. But I think you're spot on that consumer awareness and demand
Yeah.
is really the key. And as you were describing, there's a deer that's walking in front of my window. This keeps happening during the podcast, and I love it. Just a reminder that like they're here because we're talking about regen, which is great. To me, consumer demand is spot on, like the thing that has to happen. You mentioned like the consumers will try to get more regenerative products, right? So then more brands will come into the play, which will require more farmers to transition to regenerative. And I think about kombucha 10 years ago and the availability of kombucha. And as consumers started to become more aware of like, hey, I want this alternative to soda, still a sparkling, effervescent beverage. It provides some level of health for my gut. And now it's in Walmart, like Anthony talked about before. It's everywhere. So consumers made that demand. More brands started to make different kombuchas. It's sold at all sorts of restaurants now. You can get it anywhere you want. So if we can get that same kind of awareness and adoption and traction for regenerative, like I don't see why we can't get there, especially in 50 years. If you look at what kombucha did in the last 10, I think that regen, there's a viable way we can actually make this happen.
Yeah, I mean, even looking like on a much broader scope, just how USDA organic foods grew. And now you can find organic foods at every retailer you go to, whether that's Walmart, Target, Whole Foods. Every retailer is carrying organic versions of products. And so I think we can get there. And I don't see a reason why regenerative products can't be sold at every retailer.
Yeah.
Amen.
And thank you for carrying the.
We look forward to
regenerative
seeing
flag.
that in 2050.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for carrying the regenerative flag to the ice cream aisle.
Absolutely. Dude,
Yeah, of
so
course.
great to have you on, man. Thanks for joining us. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Really enjoyed the conversation. It's fun to talk regen and also not have to give the whole science class to people and convince them why. But yeah, it's really appreciate you having me on.
Where, as we wrap up, where can people find more information on what you're doing? You mentioned it at the beginning, but let's wrap up with that.
Yeah, so you can find us at our website, alexicecream.com. That's ALECS icecream.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Alex Ice Cream. We're now on TikTok too, at Alex Ice Cream.
Getting those millennials
to do that as well. Exactly. And so, yeah, you can find us all over social and on our website at www.alexicecream.com.
Hell yeah.
Good deal. Thanks so much, man. Congrats on everything.
Yeah.
Pumped for you.
Thank you.
For show notes and more information on our guests and what we discuss on the show, check out our website, regen-brands.com. That is regen-brands.com. You can also check out our YouTube channel, Regen Brands Podcast, for all of our episodes with both video and audio. The best way to support our work is to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to future episodes. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Regen Brands Podcast, brought to you by the Regen Coalition and Outlaw Ventures. We hope you learned something new in this episode and it empowers you to use your voice, your time, and your dollars to help us build a better and more regenerative food system. Love you guys.